What it do, cucks? This is your boy the hater, and I forgot that SmackDown was back to 2 hours, so I started watching it late, thinking I'd have an hour and a half of commercials to skip, and that was a mistake. And let's be honest, it's probably gonna happen again for a couple of weeks until I really remember that SmackDown is 2 hours. But without further ado, let's get to it segment by segment. All right, this episode, I gotta give it some props because there were some good things that happened, and it was only 2 hours. But overall, it suffers from the same problem that I mentioned in my last video, which is that there are no big matches. People now just show up and they phone it in. Now that's fine. The hater accepts it as what it is, but doesn't mean I have to like it. So, before we start, I want to take a quick moment to say rest in peace to Diogo Jota, the Portuguese soccer player who tragically died in a car accident at the age of 28 or 29, along with his brother, who was also a soccer player, a lesser-known soccer player, but nevertheless, a young man. I think the brother's only 25. And also, rest in peace to Julian McMahon, who played Christian Troy on Nip Tuck, who also died at an early age of 56. One of my favorite TV actors ever. I love Nip Tuck, and I love the character of Christian Troy. So rest in peace, guys. Thank you for the entertainment. Now let's get to people that are still alive and kicking, thankfully, and are here to try to entertain us. First off, the cuckster himself comes out, and then Randy joins. In my notes, I wrote Ramdy. Randy Orton. From now on, he's going to be called Randy Orton, motherfuckers. Randy basically blows Cody until the jobber Drew McIntyre returns. He makes fun of them for blowing each other. This was actually pretty smart. They're out there saying how good each other is, and Orton wants him to beat Cena, blah, 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 blee, blee, blee. Drew comes out. He's boring as usual, but he does have a few good lines. The first one that I just said about them blowing each other, and also he says that he's the alpha and he's back, pretty much piggybacking off the idea that Cucky and Randy, they have that beta energy now, right? He's not wrong about that, right? Drew says to Cody, I want you to win so they can have a battle of the former failures, right? They have parallel careers, meaning that they both sucked ass. They didn't meet the expectations thrusted upon them by Vince McMahon and company. They got fired, and then everyone else sucked even more, so they hired these two guys back. As he's talking about this, he takes one more dig at Randy Orton, saying that I'm not going to hesitate like this guy did. Boom, RKO, and this 3 beat jobber is shut up for good, at least for this segment, right? Next up, we move backstage. I should note one thing, though. In this segment, like the draw of this segment is the King of the Ring winner, Cody Rhodes, is here. But nothing really happened, right? So it's like, if Cody didn't show up, the same thing would go down. How about instead, just have this segment, and this leads to a main event match between Cody and Drew McIntyre. And then, at this point, even if that match ends in a screwy finish, at least we got something that can resemble, to a degree, a main event match, right? That's really all you can ask for, and I think that's fine, But those were the days of old. These are the days of new. These things don't happen. The main event's going to be something far less exciting. More on that in a little bit. Alexa Bliss and Charlotte have a backstage segment, and they become a team reluctantly to challenge for the, the women's tag team titles at Evolution, right? They don't have to earn anything. They're just both big stars, so they're going to just do that. They have a match that's made against the Secret Hervis. Maybe this was like a contendership match, but obviously they're going to beat these two jobbers, right? Like in this stage of their careers, like this is all they can do, right? They can do these these tropes. Like how many times have we seen the reluctant tag team? Whatever, it is what it is. I didn't like it at all. Jacob and Drew have a face-off backstage, right? Drew and then afterwards Nick Aldis both completely tower over this regular-ass dude called Jacob Fatu. Like, I know we've talked about this before. I know that people think that Samoans are just tougher than everybody else, but like Drew McIntyre would completely pulverize Jacob Fatu in 30 seconds. Like he would just end his life in 30 seconds. It's ridiculous that Jacob Fatu is being presented as being on the same level. He's less athletic. He's obviously smaller. He's less muscular. He's less good looking. He's less charismatic. He has none of the attributes that Drew McIntyre does have. And Drew McIntyre is still a jobber. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Make that what it is and make that what you will. Later tonight, it'll be Solo and a partner, or maybe not Solo partner. It'll be two people from the Solo group against Jacob Fatu and one of his partners. We don't have to wait too long because Big Jim appears. And basically, he wants to be the partner for Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu says, do you get in where you fit in? Which actually makes sense. The idea is like, are you going to fall in line? And then Jim says yeet, which doesn't make any sense in this context. Yeet does not mean yes. Yeet has a different meaning, right? I know that Jey Uso uses it incorrectly, but the hater is good with the street lingo, and that's not what yeet means. But nevertheless, in this context, it does mean that because that's how he uses it. And then Jacob Fatu says, you know what I mean? Which obviously is an extension of, do you know what I mean, right? You know what I mean, right? And like, that doesn't make any sense in this context either. Jimmy Uso says, yeah. Right? And he's like, you know what I mean? You can't just like say that without any context, right? It's not like, it's a word. I know it's like, it's just a sound at this point. Like, these are just like sounds of Samoans at this point. But like, you know what I mean does have like a meaning, right? But anyways, it's very ironic because the word mean is in there. Anyways, whatever, right? After this, we move directly to Charlotte versus Alexa, and they win in the 2000th Reluctant Partners angle. Basically, Charlotte whoops that ass, does the moonsault, then pats Alexa on the head. This counts as a tag. Charlotte does the moonsault, then kicks Chelsea Green off the apron, and she's kind of like celebrating. Alexa hits the Twisted Bliss and pins, I don't know, Alba Fire, I guess, right? She pins one of them. I don't even remember, to be honest, right? And then this is just, like a reluctant tag team thing. I mean, whatever, it is what it is. I will say this, though. Because SmackDown is 2 hours, everything is just moving faster, or so it feels, right? Where, like, the match is made, and then almost immediately after, it just happens. There's no, like, need to waste another hour with segments involving, like, Grayson Waller, By the way, the haters started watching Australian Survivor, and I see this motherfucker. He looks exactly like Grayson Waller, except he has bleach blonde hair. I'm like, what the fuck is Grayson Waller doing there? I couldn't believe my eyes. And that's right, motherfuckers. You can look it up. I don't know if it's on his Wikipedia, but I looked it up afterwards. And I mean, I didn't really corroborate this, but the guy on Australian Survivor is called Matt. And Grayson Waller's first name is Matthew. They look exactly the same. He's from Australia. It's got to be him. So there you have it, motherfuckers. This guy came from Survivor. So I don't want to hear how The Miz came from, like, real world. Whatever, it is what it is. Cucks this. Anyways, then we have the shittiest tag team division literally of all time, and they're bickering backstage. The general bickering revolves around the Wyatt family. Ciampa and Gargano are basically saying, like, yo, we're not the bad guys, they're the bad guys. Then Fraxium says, you guys got your asses beat by Andrade and Rey Fenix. So, this leads to Fraxium versus Andrade and Rey Fenix, which happens, like, very, very soon after this, right? But before that, we also have, like, this dumbass match that's made. It's all the men of the Wyatt family, all four of them, against one person from each of the four remaining tag teams. I know that Chris Sabin was there, Montez was there, I think Berto, I don't remember, to be honest, right? Berto is also holding some title. They probably won like the AAA, like, jobber weight championship or something. Nobody cares at all. It's embarrassing to even have those titles on them. Like, they haven't won a match in SmackDown, like, literally ever. I think they've won one match, like, on TV. Ever, basically. So there you have it, but whatever, it is what it is. Maybe it's not a tag team title. I didn't see Angel Garza holding one. I don't remember, to be honest. So there you have it. Right after this, we get the match. Not before we get, like, the long-ass entrance of the Wyatt family. I mean, the Wyatt Six. But it is what it is, right? It is a match with 8 people. People are getting exposure. But I couldn't help but think during this match that Chris Sabin, a little bit, but mostly Montez Ford, right? It's like, I know I've shat on Montez Ford a lot. And quite frankly, I don't think he's main event caliber, but I also don't think that Jacob Fatu or Cucky Rhodes are main event caliber. So in the world where mid-card jobbers become main eventers, I don't see why Montez doesn't get at least one shot. He's like twice the size of everybody else except for Rowan, who's had too many shots to count, right? He'd probably beat up everybody in this match, almost certainly, except for Rowan, right? Who has had a million matches. Nobody's beating up Rowan, let's be honest, right? Like, maybe, like at this point, there's no more Braun Strowman. Like, it's probably Rowan. He's probably like the strongest guy in the entire roster. But anyways, it is what it is, right? Montez just has the attributes. He has the Cody Rhodes attributes. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the John Cena or the Orton. He certainly doesn't have the Rock or the Stone Cold or the Undertaker or the Kane attributes or even the Triple H attributes or even the Booker T attributes. But he does have the Cody Rhodes attributes, right? Cody Rhodes should be a mid-carder. Montez Ford should be a mid-carder. Cody Rhodes is a main eventer, so Montez Ford should at least be a mid-carder / get some sort of main event push at some point. He's 35. I don't see it happening. He's like on the road to nowhere, whatever, right? And basically they lose. The 4-man team made up of tag team jobbers, loses. But this is to be expected because even though the Wyatt Six is full of jobbers, they are a faction, right? It would make no sense for like a faction that hangs out together and does creepy shit together to be like less coordinated than a random ass, like team of 4 dudes, right? The match ends when Gargano refuses to tag in because he's afraid of fucking Rowan. So Chris Sabin gets the Iron Claw Slam and gets his monkey ass pinned. Simple as that. Nothing crazy here. It was a good way to like at least display the Wyatt Six. So, I didn't hate it. The match had something of a story, but like, where do you go from here, right? Because I think that where they're going to go from here is next week, Gargano and Ciampa are going to be bitching and moaning again, And it's like sometimes people have to be held accountable. Next up, Tiffany Stratton comes out to pick her challenger at SummerSlam. Sorry, at Evolve, because that's how it is now. At least it's consistent, right? The same way that Io Sky got to do that, the SmackDown Women's Champion gets to do that too. Jade Cargill comes out for absolutely no reason, just to say that, like, I'm next at SummerSlam. Like, we already know this, right? She comes out with what I'm assuming is a wig, right? She just looks very weird today. I think she has perfectly normal hair on her own. I think she has, like, shoulder-length hair, unless that's also a wig. I could see this broad just having, like, 12 to 15 styrofoam heads in her room and just wigs all over them and her just being, like, bald or something. But I think she has, like, short, like, shoulder-length hair that's also bleached white. And I think that's the best look she's got, All these other wigs, just put them away, I should note also that Tiffany Stratton comes out looking like she's about to film a porno, maybe with a Wyatt Six. Who knows? I'm sure all the neckbeards right now are getting a boner thinking about that, but that's because you're all weird, right? At this point, Tiffany Stratton, who is infinitely better than Jade Cargill on the mic. Jade Cargill is like one of the worst ever on the mic. And Tiffany Stratton, for all this shit that I talk about her looking all weird and plasticky, she's pretty good on the mic, She brings out Trish. Trish comes out looking better than every woman wrestler currently employed, and she's like 50 years old. It is what it is. The other two look like dudes compared to Trish, right? Now, when the extensions of Tiffany Stratton come off and the 19 pounds of makeup come off, right? And then her broad shoulders are left there, right? She's probably looking a little bit like a dude. And like I said, when Jade Cargill's 19 wigs come off and go on the styrofoam heads, she's probably looking like a dude too, Trish Stratus, on the other hand, looks great. Trish basically says she wants to be the champion. There's nothing really to worry about here, anything to consider. Trish is just there to say she's going to accept the challenge. Tiffany says basically, in so many words, that everything runs on Tiffy time and that this ain't the Attitude Era. Believe me, we know it's not the Attitude Era. But hey, Tiffany Stratton has to represent her era, so this is perfectly reasonable. The match is made. We move on with our lives. Commercial after the commercial. Backstage, Trish and Jade have another interaction. They could have had this in the ring, but they didn't. And this actually, I'm not even joking. This was my favorite part of the whole night. I thought this was a great segment. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hater, surely you're bullshitting us. I absolutely am not. Because this was a classic segment. It was like 30 seconds, and it made the point clear. So basically, Trish says, I'll see you at SummerSlam, because Jay tells her, I'm going to win, right? I'm going to beat you at SummerSlam, even if you beat, Tiffany. And basically, Trish says, I'm going to beat Tiffany, so I'll see you at SummerSlam. Cool. That actually would be pretty interesting. I don't see a scenario where Trish wins. I think she should, but I just don't see a scenario where that happens. Tiffany versus Jade is a perfectly acceptable SummerSlam match. It's probably going to be a good match. And honestly, Tiffany, we could do worse than Tiffany in terms of as a, women's champion. Of course, I would want Jade to win because I like Jade, but Jade is pretty much getting cucked out left and right, so I don't really care that much. If Tiffany wins, it's not the end of the world. And the best part happens when, after this conversation, Naomi motherfucks comes out of nowhere, just blasts Jade with the Money in the Bank, and says she should have proceeded with caution. And then Naomi laughs like a fucking maniac. This was just great. This is some character work from Naomi. They put those dumbass caution tape things on her, right? And she's taking the stupid ass catchphrase, proceed with caution. And I think she's going to get it over because she just delivers it so well, right? This was basically a presentation of the current character of Naomi, which I would describe as someone who's just very unhinged. She's just a crazy broad, right? And that's more entertaining than literally every other woman on the roster right now, right? What's Nia Jax's gimmick or even the Hook? What's Bianca Belair's gimmick? What the fuck happened to her, by the way? Didn't Bianca Belair come back? And then she was like, I'm back. And then she's not back anymore. I'm back. You're mad, or however it goes. Or you're mad. I'm back. But whatever. It is what it is. I really liked this segment. It was very quick, and it didn't end there. Nick Aldis comes out of nowhere, and he's like, oh my God, Jade, I'm so sorry. Jade's like, yo, I fucking had enough of this shit. You know, like, how many times am I going to tolerate Naomi attacking me, right? She demands a match. That's why it was a great segment. You know, there was a pre-segment, the Trish Stratus situation, just so it's not just like Jade Cargill just walking around for no reason. That explains why the camera's there, right? Then there was the actual thing that happened, which was Naomi blasting her and, you know, trying to put herself over. And then there was a conclusion. Jade Cargill wants a match. I thoroughly enjoyed this very short segment. I almost laughed at the way that Naomi delivered the line, and when she laughed crazy, I was like, all right, you know, someone gave her lemons, and she's making lemonade, motherfuckers. Yellow lemonade with yellow caution tape up in that bitch. So anyways, now we have Andrade and Rey Fenix versus Fraxium, right? Andrade and Rey Fenix win a very entertaining match, I'm not going to lie. Andrade, in terms of in-ring guys, he's one of my favorite in-ring guys. It's probably him and Carmelo Hayes. Those are the two guys that I enjoy watching wrestle the most, right? Because they have cool, fun moves. However, Carmelo Hayes hasn't wrestled on TV since like WrestleMania, basically. I'm pretty sure he's basically done. Like, there's no point in keeping him around. At this point, just bring Trick Williams, give Trick Williams like a 2 to 3 month push. Once he fails, just put them in a tag team again. You know what I mean? That's pretty much it. That's what they're going to do with Rey Fenix and Pentagon as well. Eventually, they're all headed to the same place. You know, they're all headed to AEW probably. But anyways, you know, for better or for worse, I think Andrade still sucks overall, but he puts on good matches. Rey Fenix, I've said even before he was signed, right? I said this like years ago, that Rey Fenix is my second favorite luchador, maybe of all time, after Rey Mysterio. Like, I'm not counting, like, you know, Eddie Guerrero, Lionheart, Chris Jericho. I'm talking about the real, like, the masked ones, motherfuckers. The ones that are primarily known for being masked cucks, right? So, like, he's my second favorite. So, obviously, I like him. He does good moves, too. And it goes without saying, like, I joke around about Fraxium, but Nathan Frazier, I have many times explained how I feel about Nathan Frazier. Nathan Frazier, like, for the moves that this fucking asshole does, like, he should be botching every 3 moves. Like Penta, for example, botches every 3 moves. CM Punk botches every 3 moves. Like, Kofi Kingston botches like more than half of his moves. Like, last week, Kofi Kingston tried to do that mushroom stomp thing. He did it with 1 foot and it still looked like shit. It's like almost everything Kofi Kingston does just looks like shit. You know? I like Kofi Kingston, but the facts are the facts, right? Nathan Frazier, on the other hand, does things that are 10 times more impressive, and he never botches, right? He's like on that level of like Ricochet and Will Ospreay for me. Like, guys that do crazy shit, and somehow the crazy shit always looks good. Even AJ Styles and Rey Mysterio sometimes botch, especially in this day and age, right? But these guys just never botch. They're crazy good, man. Fraxium too. Axiom as well. I mean, Axiom is just another jobber, you know, whatever. Who cares about Axiom? He was wearing a mask and a turtleneck, so, you know, I already hate his ass for that. But that's how that goes. The match was perfectly fine. It ends with Andrade basically screwing somebody up, and they get stuck on the, what's it called? On the fucking rope, like in the ball position. And then that's the position where Rey Fenix does the adios amigo kick or whatever, where he runs the ropes and kicks the guy. Andrade then hits the message while Rey Fenix dives to the other guy, and Andrade and Rey Fenix win, right? Like, look, the match was good. I can't shit on it. This is a perfectly acceptable SmackDown match. If we had like 2 or 3 of matches like this on every SmackDown, and we had 1 match with a main eventer, I think that would be sufficient. I mean, I think there should be like 5 or 6 matches per SmackDown. But if you have 4 matches, but good segments, like the Naomi one, you could have a good show. But obviously, the most important thing is delivering with a main event. Because I'm surprised that people just didn't leave. Like, if I were there in attendance, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not seeing anyone that matters. I think I'm just going to go home and beat the traffic. I have no interest in seeing JC Mateo in the main event like I called it a few weeks ago. Fucking JC Mateo is like a multiple time SmackDown main eventer. Now, I know you're thinking, hater, what's the big deal? It's SmackDown. But I remember there was one time when Christian Cage, who I think we can all agree is better than everyone currently today, Christian Cage, he got this like massive accolade because he was the first wrestler in like forever to main event both SmackDown and Raw, right? Like, think about like how hard it was back then because the shows were actually segregated and it was so difficult to main event both. Even Cena didn't do it, right? It was difficult to main event anything back then, you know? And I remember when Christian, after he cut his hair, after he was with the company for like 6 years, he finally got the Captain Charisma t-shirt. You know what I mean? It was the first Christian t-shirt. They had Edge and Christian t-shirts. This was the first exclusive Christian t-shirt, right? Like, you kidding me? Like, JC Fateo probably already has like 8 t-shirts. I know it's a different time, but like that felt like a big deal. I'm like, oh, Christian's got his own shirt. That's how we used to measure shit back then. Now it's like Baron Corbin's had like 35 shirts, has accomplished nothing. You know? Like Solo Sikoa is a complete mid-card nobody, right? Accomplished nothing. Christian Cage has had like, he already had a Hall of Fame career before his first shirt. You know? So there you have it. I mean, I think it speaks volumes. Cucks this. But anyways, Andrade and Rey Fenix win. In my opinion, this effectively buries Fraxium, because Fraxium were this like tag team in NXT that was told they were good. They believed their own hype, and the fans were told this is one of the best tag teams in the world, right? They wrestled and lost to the Hardy Boys, but the Hardy Boys are the Hardy Boys. They're like top 3 tag teams of all time. You know what I mean? So they were like this big deal in NXT and in the other bullshit, like when they were in TNA and shit like that. But now they lose to 2 lower card guys, forming like, you know, an alliance of convenience. It just doesn't. It's not a good look, right? Fraxium is already on the mend. They're already in that Street Profits like 2 years ago phase, right? Where they're just there. You know, people want them to win, but they're not gonna. They're just there. They might one day become tag team champions, but it doesn't mean anything. They're not going to be this tag team mainstay, and their careers are not going well, I think, in any metric. So there you have it. That's how that went down. I didn't particularly like that at all. Cucks this. I don't really like these kind of segments. But speaking of bad segments, we have another backstage segment. This is a complete waste of time. It's Damian Priest having the same exact segment as last week with SmackDown's Rusev, Aleister Black, right? Aleister Black is literally the same thing as Rusev, right? They're in the same position. They're just these guys that wrestle once every 4 weeks. Then we have vignettes about them wrestling in 3 weeks, in 2 weeks, and next week. Then they wrestled. Nobody cares. Like, nobody reacts at all. Like, did you see the Rusev match? Nobody gave a shit about that. Nobody's going to give a shit about, like, Aleister Black again, you know? So, Damian Priest is there basically saying, like, oh, R-Truth this, R-Truth that. Like, shut the fuck up, you know? Go do your own thing. What are you doing with your life? You know what I mean? You're just there, like, dealing with R-Truth drama. Just go fight for a title or something, nerd. You lost to Drew McIntyre. Why are you behind him in line? Anyways, after this, it's time for the main event. It's time for Fatu and Big Jim versus the Family Tree, which I believe is what they're going to be called now. It's going to be, of course, Solo versus JC Fateo. The match is boring. I don't like these matches. Everyone involved sucks. They're all the same. They have the same moves, basically. But I will say this. In addition to this, this match was a main event match, but it was also a match that didn't matter at all, right? This is one of those matches where the match is irrelevant. You know, this match should have ended with a DQ, because even if JC Fateo or Solo Sikoa lose, and even if Big Jim and Fatu win, nothing changes. Like, nothing has happened, right? Because fundamentally, after the match, the real threat, you know, Tala Tonga, which is obviously my favorite one of all of these jobbers, right? Tala Tonga goes and destroys everybody. They do a shield powerbomb onto that jobber Fatu through the table, and they also take care of Big Jim with a variety of finishing moves. They all do their finishers. It is what it is. I enjoyed the post-match beatdown, and it got me thinking, like, this would actually be a pretty good faction, right? Like, a Samoan-based faction. I know I'm like 6 years late to this, but a Samoan-based faction that is led by someone of the caliber of Solo Sikoa is a good mid-card faction, right? Like the Hurt Business, you know? A good mid-card faction. I know that the Hurt Business ultimately ended with Bobby Lashley winning the world title, but like the next day he disbanded the Hurt Business, right? The Hurt Business was a mid-card faction. Their leader was Lashley, and he was the US champion. Right? It's the same exact thing as this Solo Sikoa faction, right? Now, if Solo Sikoa becomes champion, which I hope doesn't happen because he's not Bobby Lashley, right? Then they can disband it or they can keep going. I don't care. But this faction looks good. It looks like a believable faction of a bunch of jobbers who are getting together to make a point, right? To make a point. But it doesn't really fly as smoothly considering what we've had to tolerate for the aforementioned 5 years that I just spent 10 seconds talking about, right? If this didn't all revolve around Roman Reigns, like, this would be more entertaining. The fact that this is an offshoot of, like, the fucking, the Roman Reigns bloodline is inexcusable. It's almost like a terrible thing to do. It would have been better to give Solo Sikoa like 3 months, like, to do like his own thing, win some matches, win the US title, and then rebuild the faction. That would have been, I think, more entertaining, you know? But they already blew their load because they want to do the Bloodline Civil War. So here we are. Now, with all that being said, I'm not necessarily entertained by Solo Sikoa, but I recognize a good mid-card faction when I see one. This is not one, but it could have been if they were just introduced like this. Like, imagine if all 4 of these guys just debuted on the same night, right? Kind of like the Wyatt Six, but they're not jobbers, you know? That would be pretty nice. I would have enjoyed that. But that's not the path they chose, and that's not how it went down. So, you know, what are you going to do about it? I guess we'll have to wait and see. I am not interested in seeing the continuation of the Jacob Fatu Solo Sikoa storyline. The Jacob Fatu, like, I'm going to call it a face turn because it really isn't. In my opinion, Solo Sikoa is the real face because, like, Solo Sikoa never attacked Jacob. Jacob put his hands on Solo first, costing him the Money in the Bank. I mean, he also, like, set him up for the Money in the Bank, but nevertheless. Point is, this faction is entertaining if they start at some point doing other things. Because for the last, 2 years, the Bloodline has just been dealing with the Bloodline. And for the last 4 years, they've been dealing with the Bloodline and Cocky Rhodes, That's pretty much all that's happened. And Cocky Rhodes is smart enough to understand that it's time to move on. So he's doing other shit. Now he's entering his Cena and John Cena feuds, right? Which actually are main event feuds. Unlike the Roman Reigns feud, which as we know now, they pulled the wool over our eyes a little bit, presenting Roman Reigns as the main eventer, but Roman Reigns is a fucking abject jobber at this point. If he comes back, I don't think anybody should care. I know people will because they're dumbasses, but it's why? So he can have 2 more matches this year, and then have a match at WrestleMania and be just arrogant and do nothing with his life. Shouldn't he be furious? This is why I hate the Roman Reigns character. I'm going to do another video on it, but basically it's just inconsistently booked. So that being said, motherfuckers, this has been your SmackDown review. I will say, it's only been one episode of a 2-hour SmackDown, so I don't want to be too harsh. It wasn't that good. I'm going to give it a D, but I still believe it's going in the right direction. So hopefully, with these 2 hours, it was much more manageable. It was much more palpable. It was much more entertaining. So that being said, take care of yourselves and go fuck your mothers and happy 4th of July, motherfuckers.